It was just another ordinary afternoon at the busy neighborhood supermarket when something extraordinary unfolded, an event that would remind everyone present that humanity and compassion are still alive in this world. Customers bustled through the aisles, children clutched candy bars, and shopping carts clattered against linoleum floors. No one knew that, in just a few moments, the store would fall silent, every eye fixed on a single man and a trembling cashier. John Kennedy, a middle-aged father of two known in his community for his kind smile and steady demeanor, was waiting in line at the checkout counter. He carried nothing extravagant, just the basics: bread, milk, eggs, and a bouquet of fresh daisies he had picked up for his wife. To everyone else, it seemed like a routine trip. But for the young cashier ringing up his groceries, this transaction was anything but ordinary. Her name was Maria, barely in her 20s, working long shifts to keep up with school fees and family responsibilities. Usually cheerful and efficient, today she seemed distracted. Her hands shook as she scanned each item. She avoided John's eyes, chewing nervously on her lower lip. And then, just as she handed him the receipt, she slipped a small folded piece of paper into his palm. Her fingers lingered for a second, trembling as if begging him to notice. John's brows furrowed in confusion. He glanced at the note, then at Maria, whose face was pale and strained. With quiet curiosity, he opened the paper. Inside were just a few words, hastily scribbled in shaky handwriting: "Please help me. I'm in danger." The air seemed to vanish from the room. John's heart pounded as he looked back at the young woman. She barely met his gaze, but her eyes were filled with silent desperation. Something was terribly wrong. Job had two choices: ignore the note, or act. Most people, caught off guard, might hesitate, but John Kennedy wasn't like most people. Instead of panicking, he calmly picked up his groceries, smiled at Maria as though nothing unusual had happened, and walked just a few steps away. But instead of leaving the store, he quickly pulled out his phone. With a steady voice, he called 911 and explained what had just taken place. He stayed near the exit, keeping Maria in his line of sight. Within minutes, two police officers walked onto the store, disguising their concern with casual strolls down the aisles. John discreetly pointed toward the cashier. The officers approached her quietly, asking if she was all right. That was when the truth came pouring out. Maria whispered that her abusive ex-partner had been stalking her for weeks. Just before her shift, she had spotted him waiting in the parking lot. Terrified, she feared he might harm her if she left alone. She didn't know who to trust until she saw John's gentle eyes and kind demeanor at the counter. Something told her he was the right person to reach out to. The officers immediately escorted her to safety, confronting the man lingering outside. Witnesses later confirmed he had been pacing the lot, watching the entrance. Thanks to Maria's brave note and John's quick action, the man was arrested before he could carry out whatever dark intentions he had planned. As the police led the suspect away, the supermarket fell eerily silent. Customers who had been too focused on their own shopping now stood frozen, realizing they had just witnessed something profound. And then, one by one, people began to applaud, not for the artist but for Maria's courage and John's extraordinary compassion. Maria, her face wet with tears, managed a faint smile as she thanked John. "You saved me," she whispered. But John simply shook his head. "You saved yourself," he said softly. "All I did was listen." That simple sentence carried a weight that touched everyone who heard it. In a world where people so often look the other way, Job had chosen to see, to care, and to act, and that made all the difference. The story quickly spread beyond the supermarket walls. Neighbors praised John for his bravery. Parents told their children about Maria's courage. Strangers shared the news online, calling it a reminder of the power of kindness and vigilance in everyday life. This wasn't just about one man or one young woman. It was about what happens when humanity refuses to stay silent in the face of fear. It was a story of trust, courage, and the simple truth that sometimes, saving a life starts with noticing the smallest cry for help. By the end of the day, Maria was safe, surrounded by family and support. John went home to his wife with the bouquet of daisies, humbled and grateful. As he set the flowers on the kitchen table, He couldn't help but think sometimes, the most ordinary day can become the most extraordinary moment when we choose to act with love. And that is the heart of this story. You never know what battles the person next to you might be fighting. One kind gesture, one moment of awareness, can change everything. Because heroes aren't always found in uniforms or headlines. Sometimes, they're just ordinary people like John Kennedy who decide to listen when someone whispers for help.